Now, to give a little backstory on this photo, that is actually me right there with the colorful hair with my friends. This day we decided to hang up 13 flags for the 13 soldiers that had tragically died, the Marines. My friend right here in the far right hand corner, he's actually a Marine, so we all got together to hang up flags in remembrance of them. One of the Marine who actually had died, he had lived in our hometown, so we wanted to make sure that they would never be forgotten. However, today this photo is a metaphor for social injustice within America. This photo symbolizes the inequality and racial disparity within sentencing. To the outside world, the judicial system hides behind fencing and paints to the American people in liberty and freedom for all, when there's an opposite side to the fence of those affected by the judicial system. This slide is perfect for the power of communication. African Americans are at a higher disadvantage than white. This photo symbolizes that African Americans are at a higher rate of being incarcerated compared to whites. We can see from the brown building, it's just higher than the white one. This symbolizes and represents not just incarceration rates, but higher trial penalties, harsher sentences, and longer prison time to pre-trial than whites. I think this photo perfectly symbolizes that, as we can see on the leveling scale, the dark brown building is higher than the white one, and the white one is actually more in focus comparative to the brown one, symbolizing that whites get more focus than African Americans within the judicial system. Overcoming obstacle, man begs for new beginnings. This slide represents the why or how America treats minority people, including the criminal justice system. According to the Sentencing Project, quote unquote, a financially burdensome and under-resourced criminal legal system puts people with low incomes who are disproportionately of color at a disadvantage. Unquote. There are no extra resources that helps impoverished minorities, from pretrial releases, better lawyers, leaves quote-unquote disadvantaged low-income people of color, and incarcerates pressure to take a less favorable plea deal, quote-unquote, from the Sentencing Project. This plays well into many theories and why minorities are stigmatized. This photo actually represents perfectly to why I chose that, as we can see this African American male beg for hope, money, whatever resource he might need that necessarily might not be given or might be more easily accessible to whites. We can also use this as a comparison to the criminal justice system. Theories as to why. The color that is in bold letters within the empty tube is a perfect metaphor for minorities and their struggle in everyday lifestyle. The emptiness of the tube represents those of color being exalted of every effort they have. We can see by the labeling of the color and chocolate brown as it stands out most from everything else on the packaging, symbolizing that color within the justice system stands out most than what actually is meaning inside. Also, these three theories that we have on here, the broken windows theory, leading causes to crime minorities, social disorganization theory, and collective efficiency theory of informal social control are prime examples as to why racial disparity is a leading cause, among other reasons, within the criminal justice system. This chart from the National Library of Medicine perfectly links a direct path to crime. Quote unquote, its weakness to social control and eliciting community indifference. We can see in the purple box, if we replace it to any theories, it perfectly aligns as a trifecta that each theory can combine with disorder and crime, resulting in disparities within the criminal justice system. This picture represents the dark pathways that African Americans and Latinx people will face through the criminal justice system. Some are lucky to have help, seek light, or even be exonerated by projects like the sentencing projects. Others, this is just a dream, a beacon of light, or a beautiful view that will always be far away. This picture falls perfectly within facts presented within the justice system. More minorities, which represent the dark cookies, the Latinx, the African Americans, are at a higher advantage to being in the box, locked up, than whites, which signifies the single white cookie. And here are some facts that show data points that resemble higher numbers of African Americans than whites. I think these quotes perfectly resemble this picture here in comparison to racial disparity within sentencing. We can see on my slide, Black Americans are incarcerated in state prisons at nearly 5 times the rate of white Americans. Latinx individuals are incarcerated in state prison at a rate that is 1.3 times the incarceration rates of whites. And thirdly, nationally 1 in 81 Black adults in the U.S. is serving times in state prison. Wisconsin leads the nation in Black imprisonment rates. 1 of every 36 Blacks, Wisconsinites, are in prison. This picture I have chose here is going to represent the prejudice and unconscious bias, which was one of the suggested explanations as to why judges might treat Black and ethnic minority defendants differently from their white counterparts. This is part of a quote from Wiley Online Library that perfectly stigmatizes this picture. On the left here, we have minorities and African Americans who are in the dark that are less favorable comparative to the right side that's more light, more rich, more beautiful, that judges might favor or tend to look to. As we can see with my head here, if I am a symbolization for the judge, as I'm supposed to be looking down the pathway between both to make the right decision and follow the right path, the light shines and resembles more of the beauty side. Now this is more of a quote that I'm going to read to fully grasp the true definition of this picture. Prejudice and unconscious bias was one of the suggested explanations as to why judges might treat Black and ethnic minority defendants differently from their white counterparts. A study conducted by Rachel Linsky et al. Also found that this to be the case using the implicit association test, which measures benefits, behaviors, and attitudes that people are unable or reluctant to report. The study found that white trial judges had a firm white preference and that this influenced their decision-making. The judges were unaware of their racial bias and only were made aware where they are able to suppress them, unquote. This brings you to my last slide, beauty in the disaster, combating racial disparity. According to the Sentencing Project, they give some recommendations according to how we should combat racial disparity. Some of these examples include eliminate mandatory sentences for all crimes, require prospective and retroactive implicit statements for all criminal statutes, and decriminalize low-level offenses. By realizing there is an issue, it will help make more beauty in this world and even be able to see all the beautifulness that nature has to offer after the dark storm has erupted through. Thank you for watching my PowerPoint, which also feels like a TED Talk, but thank you for watching my PowerPoint and have a lovely evening.